there for the people who are affected by the hurricane. But my central question is this. If you're always looking for signs from God, would this not be a sign that maybe, just maybe,
we're going
God doesn't
to get
want
started
Trump
here
to
in
be
just a
president
moment.
of the United States? Just asking a question.
YouTube, my YouTube folk, I'm bringing you in. I do a TikTok live. I'm just going to do a connection on YouTube.
Has been chosen by
A lot of folk don't know I'm on YouTube, so that's why I'm just going to do this connecting
Let me play this
here. So it's a TikTok live, but YouTube will have access to it. We're going to get started here. We're going to get started here in just a moment. Right now, what I'm doing is just replaying a video that I released on TikTok. I may release that same one on YouTube, but I'm going to get back to making videos specifically for YouTube here in the coming days and weeks. It's been a little while before since I've made YouTube videos specifically for YouTube, but I'm going to get back to that. Live is going to start. The TikTok live is going to start momentarily. Again, folks on YouTube, you'll be able to. This is what this is right now, where you'll be able to see and experience the TikTok live. Okay. So I don't know exactly. It's a little slow. All right. Like I said, I'm gonna start TikTok. We usually start around 10 o'clock, so it's gonna be a little bit here, just getting situated. So if you are watching this on YouTube, what you are getting ready to see momentarily is the TikTok live. I just went ahead and connected my YouTube channel here, so you'll be able to experience the live experience through TikTok. And I was saying previously that I had not released videos or made videos specifically for YouTube in a little while, but I'm gonna get back to that in the coming days and weeks, where the YouTube videos that I used to make when I first started, we're talking about 2015, so it had been a while since I made videos specifically for YouTube, where I do the editing and the cutting and all that, and just a number of different things have happened since then, but I'm going to get back to that in the coming days and weeks. Again, this is going to be the TikTok live that I'm getting ready to start in just another minute or so. And let me see here. I need my moderator. Hold on 1 second before we get there. Let's go here first. And I want to. There we go. Let's go over here. And I need to give her. Okay, I don't want to do that on TikTok, to tell you the truth sometimes. All right. That's what it was. It's been right easy. Okay, well, just gonna have to wing it then. Over here. Live. And 3, 2, 1. All right. Good evening, everyone. Again, this is C. Edward. If you're just stepping across the live. We're just going to be getting started here in the next couple of moments. For folk who are stumbling through for the first time, my name is C. Edward. I am a center-left individual, and I am supporting Kamala Harris for the presidency of the United States of America. And if you stumbled across my page in the previous days, you know that this live is fairly new. In fact, this is the end of the first week. It's been a solid week. I have appreciated people who have stopped by and have joined and have commented, even though some of the comments leave a little something to be desired. But for the most part, people have been respectful. I, in turn, have tried to be respectful back, but I am a Kamala Harris supporter. Most of the time, you hear me drone on and on and on. You get to hear my voice, but I have, from time to time, brought on an opposing opinion, giving you an opportunity to state why you support Trump. I don't have to do that, but you don't have to stop by. And I appreciate when you do. So every now and then I want to give you an opportunity to state your case. Now, we are a month out. Now, some people are voting now. In North Carolina, I believe early voting starts on October 17th. And I have traditionally voted early when it comes to, well, just about every election. I vote, believe it or not, for just about everything. I've gone into the voting location, I've gone to a voting location, which is be me and about 10 poll workers. And it could be something like a city council seat or just voting on some type of referendum. Just love to vote. I appreciate the opportunity to have my voice heard. But I'm a registered Democrat. But I have on occasion voted for the Republican candidate for something. I just hadn't here recently voted for the Republican candidate for president. But since I have on occasion voted for a Republican candidate, the Republican Party sends me literature every single time. I've gotten literature this campaign season pro-Trump, anti-Kamala. Because they know that even though, if you check my record, I voted for Democratic governor, Democratic president, but I have voted for Republican council members. I voted, I think there was one year it was the Republican treasurer, something like that. I can't remember exactly what it was, but they realized that even as a registered Democrat, I will step outside the lines here and vote for the candidate that I feel best represents my needs or the needs of my community. I'm always willing to do that for the top spot. The closest I came to voting for a Republican president would be when I first started voting. My first election, first time I voted, I was 20 years old, and this was back in 1988. And it was the first, because when I turned 18, it was like an off year. And so I didn't vote as soon as I turned 18. I didn't vote for a House seat or whatever. But when the presidential campaign came, hello everyone. Hey, John Chunk 2024. Glad to have you here on Harris 2024, but glad to have you here. So I was 20 years old, and I had transferred, and if you stumbled across my page before, you probably heard this little spiel, but most people just get to know me, so I'll go ahead and repeat some of this stuff. I had transferred to my third college. I started off my college career on a football scholarship at a little school in Lexington, Virginia called Virginia Military Institute. Wasn't a big fan of military school, or particularly school. It's just a little more rigid than I wanted it to be. So I transferred from VMI to Wingate College. It's known as Wingate University now. And I went there. The football coach had helped me get in. And once I got to Wingate, both the football coach and the basketball coach wanted me to, play sports for them. And I had still considered myself an athlete. But I had to sit out a year, they stated. And then they did something that they maybe should not have done. And that was give me the opportunity to not be a part of the team when I sat out. Well, when I sat out, I got a little lazy and got used to not playing sports. It was the first time that I hadn't played sports since, oh man, I was probably a little guy. And I liked it. I liked not having to lift weights and run and watch what I eat and all those different types of things and just be a student. And I got so used to it that I said, you know what? I don't really want to play anymore. I mean, basketball or football. Now, I wasn't some big time athlete. I was good enough to get small time offers. Right? They call it FCS now, but schools like it was Division one AA is where my talent level went. And as far as basketball, it was schools that used to compete in this. It was called NAIA. It was Pembroke State University, which goes by UNCP now. Wingate College, which is Wingate University. Got offers at St. Augustine, for basketball, schools like that. And for football, it was schools that were Division one AA. I really wanted to go to East Carolina, but I played tight end, and they just recruited a couple of tight ends before me, and I was third man on the totem pole. That was the biggest school that I wanted to go to. We chatted around each other, but I ultimately didn't get the offer to play, and I ended up signing with Virginia Military Institute. Anyway, when I decided not to play football at Wingate, it was a small private school, and I could not afford that school if I wasn't going to be on scholarship. So I transferred to North Carolina A&T, where I finished up my college career. And that was the first year that I was able to vote for the presidency of the United States. And so I started this little bit of the conversation saying the closest I came to voting for a Republican president. And it was that year. George H.W. Bush was the Republican nominee for president. And the reason I came close to voting for George Bush was because the only president I had known, basically, now I knew Jimmy Carter. I knew about elections since I was 8 years old, which is 76. And so I knew that Jimmy Carter was the president and Jim Hunt was the governor. So I was always interested in politics. But Ronald Reagan won the presidency in 1980, and I was 12 years old. So basically, I grew up under one president. And I remember thinking, man, okay, he only can serve two terms, and I felt comfortable. And I was like, I wanted the consistency. I didn't get into all the the other things about conservatism and all that kind of stuff. It's just he was the president I knew, and I was comfortable. And I remember thinking, so he can't run, but his vice president can run. And maybe he get 4 years, and that was my line of thinking. But then I'm at North Carolina A&T, and I start to hear some opposing views. And that's when I started looking at some different avenues and different things. And ultimately, I pulled the trigger for Michael Dukakis over George Bush. He's making comments here. I'm not looking there. I'll go through those in just a moment. And I ended up voting for Michael Dukakis that year. And obviously, George H.W. beat Dukakis in the landslide. Not as bad as Reagan had beat both Jimmy Carter and Walter Mondale. That Walter Mondale defeat was probably one of the biggest defeats outside of what Nixon had done to George McGovern in 72, I think it was. Those were ass whoopings as far as landslides are concerned. Um, but that was the closest. And then, as you know, HW faced a recession and ultimately did not win re-election. And it was so unfortunate because I remember thinking, and if you recall, now I'm a Gen Xer, so I'm 56 years old. So if you're around my age, you can remember back in 91, the first Iraq War. Saddam Hussein invaded a little country called Kuwait, and George H.W. basically told him not to do it, told him to. Now, this is the original. He said way, and Iraq and Hussein said no way, and Bush said way. It was a will, way, and he went in there, and Bush said, "You can leave on your own. You can do it. It's the easy way to do the hard way." And Hussein didn't believe him, and he had to be made a believer. George H.W. had to make a believer out of him. He got a coalition together and ultimately went to war in the Iraq War. And I remember there were friends of mine who were in the reserve, a reserve outfit. Again, if you heard my spiel before, it was a reserve that I actually tried to join when I moved to Greensboro to help pay for money. But these baby Browns right here failed the physical, so I ultimately didn't get a chance to serve. I was only serving that time because I wanted to go into the reserve and get some money for the GI Bill, serve the 2 weeks and all that, which was my thinking as to why I tried to join the reserves. But I didn't pass the physical because I got a extreme stigmatism, so I didn't pass the eye test. But it's amazing. My best friend wasn't even thinking about military, but when he found out what I was trying to do, he ultimately said, "Hell, that sounds like a good idea." So he joined the reserves, and then he was part of that unit. Actually, got called up to war back in '91, and I remember just thinking, "Man, my friend's going off to war." We ended that war so quickly. If you go back, we did the air attack that bombed them into submission. And then by the time we sent the boys in on the ground, it was over. And George H.W. was living high off the hog. He was so popular. And I remember thinking he was going to coast to re-election. I mean, he had an approval rating following that war like in the 90s. That's just unheard of. But a little thing called the economy came into play. And all those Reagan years of lowering taxes, but increase in defense spending, starting to come home to roost. And HW had to raise taxes after having pledged no new taxes. And people like Nordstrom, Norquist, I can't think of his first name, and Republicans were up in uproar. See, Republicans, they labeled Democrats tax and spend, where they are actually the spend and spend. They'll spend, but they won't tax. That's how you get those big deficits. So and HW, and I am a huge George H.W. fan, H.W. Bush, I'm going to be honest with you. I just think if you look at his career, serviceman, World War II, vice president, just a solid career. And he was an adult in the room amongst Republicans where they didn't want that. And he realized that we were going to have to raise some taxes so that we can get the deficit under control and fight recession. Where when he rose taxes or authorized the rise in the taxes, he lost the Republican support. And he wasn't going to gain a lot of Democratic support. So when Bill Clinton came in, Slick Willie, and came in under the mantra, it's the economy, stupid. He was able to win the presidency that year. First time a Democrat had won since '76. And up until that moment, Republicans were kicking ass on the presidential level. And one of the main reasons why is Democrats had gone through that stage where they were electing the far left part of their party. One of the reasons why George McGovern, now that in '68, and I was a baby now, this is just me going off from just reading history because obviously I wasn't up to, wasn't born, but that Herbert Humphrey race, that's the one where Lyndon Johnson had decided he was going to drop out. And that race was pretty close. That was the first time that Nixon won. But then in '72, George McGovern was a far left. You talk about Bernie Sanders. You hear all that Bernie Sanders. Well, he was a Bernie Sanders of his day. And he took a Bernie Sanders type of ass whooping on the presidential scale. Like I said, that was the biggest landslide that I can think. I can probably go back and look. But that was like 500 plus electoral votes to maybe he won his home state. I'm not sure. But he took a whipping. And so from that point, from '68 and '72, that was Nixon. Then I won't get into Watergate and all that stuff, but Nixon didn't finish out his term. Gerald Ford finished out his term. And then Jimmy Carter came in '76, was able to win the presidency. And then the country went through malaise, is what Jimmy called it, where inflation was high, gas was high, enthusiasm was low. Not Jimmy's fault necessarily. Again, that's following 2 terms of Republican rule. That seems to always be the case, a couple of terms of that, and whoever comes in that third slot going to take an ass whipping on the national scale. But Ronald Reagan came in, and Ronald Reagan he was an actor by trade, and he was optimism. Now, there were some things that I won't get into here as far as there was an Iran hostage situation where Iran had taken some Americans hostage, and there was some shenanigans where supporters of Mr. Reagan had encouraged Iran not to release those hostages under Jimmy Carter. So I won't get into all that now, but once he won the election, the hostages were released, and it looked as if, oh man, this Reagan dude is something. So he came in as if he magically released the hostages, and he had that sunny disposition. You saw the U.S. as a shiny beacon on the hill. I forgot I'm butchering the phrase, but it was just optimism. And now I can remember, and I'll read some comments here in just a moment, so I'm going to keep chatting for just a bit here. I can remember there was a fear-mongering about Reagan amongst the black community, at least in my small town of Lumberton, where they said they thought that he was the Antichrist. The reason being, his name was Ronald Wilson Reagan. If you do the spelling of spell out the letters of his name, it was 666. So, that took off. And I remember as a 12-year-old, like scared shitless that this was the Antichrist. But obviously that wasn't true. And so Reagan came into office, and he lowered taxes. There's just a number of different things, and things started to turn around. Now, my family were Democrats, and now I'm a child of divorce, so I had 2 fathers. My dad and then my stepfather. And my stepfather ultimately actually voted for Reagan in 1984 for re-election. He thought the economy was doing well, and saw no reason to make a change. Now, my mom's never voted. I think that year, I know in the primaries, not Jimmy, but what's my man? Reverend Jackson. No, she didn't vote for Jackson. She had some issues with Jackson. I remember as a youth, she had some issues with Jesse Jackson. She thought he was rude. Now, this is just an interesting part about it. So my stepfather voted for Jesse Jackson in the Democratic primary process. uh, over Walter Mondale, but voted for Reagan, as did just about everybody else in America at that time. Mondale took an ass whooping. He ran with Geraldine Ferraro, was his running mate, first female on the presidential ticket. And so, Reagan won re-election in landslide. And like I said, he was the first president. I kind of grew up with him. So when I got an opportunity to vote for president, I really strongly considered George H.W. Bush. And I would imagine that had I stayed at either Virginia Military Institute or Wingate College, which is Wingate University now, the school that Jesse Helms, I think he went there. I know I stayed in Helms' dorm that was named after Jesse Helms. I do think that was his alma mater. You can check that. I knew it one time, but it's been years. It's just not that important to me to just keep it with a little tidbit of information. If you know Jesse Helms, I don't think he'd been too pleased that I actually stayed in his dorm. And I just leave that there. But had I stayed at one of those two schools, I most likely would have voted for George H.W. Bush, and who knows after that. But I say all that to say that even though I am center left, and I have voted for the Democratic candidate for president every election that I could vote, it's not with blinders on. If I saw a candidate that I thought was going to be good for me and mine, and when I say me and mine, that's my family, my community, whether it's my neighborhood, my state, then I would consider voting for that particular candidate. I felt like the caucus was going to be good for my community. Then I felt like Clinton was going to be good for the country overall at that time. And it was a tight race. And I still think that had not Ross Perot entered the fold back in '92, I think that H.W. probably would have won in a squeaker. Ross Perot was a billionaire candidate. He came in, jumped out, came in, jumped out. He's just a weird little guy. He's about yay high, big ears, talked a lot, liked to hear himself talk. Thought he knew, and he's folksy. That's one of the first times when people started looking at folksy, and he's a billionaire saying things that simple slogans that, and people, governing is not as simple sometimes. Sometimes they make it harder than it need to be, but sometimes it's not as simple as a slogan. Although some folk get in and can make it more complex than it need to be. But anyway, Ross Perot came in and he captured the attention of a good deal of folk and threw a little monkey wrench in there. But I think he pulled votes from HW that year. Because if you look at I think it was like, and don't quote me on the numbers, you can look them up yourself if you're so inclined, but it was like Clinton won like 43%, and George H.W. won like 38%, Ross took like 18%, something like that. But it's real tight. But let me see if any comments here worth talking about here. How long as I say highway patrol? I'm flipping on these comments. First thing I say, y'all jumping on my mustache. All right. Hey, touche, homies, touche. All right. Let's see. Let's see. We need to raise taxes on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't know what that means. FBI on to you people pushing misinformation. The FBI. Let me look at it. So somebody called Venezuela. Loves Kamala says that the FBI is on to you people pushing misinformation about Trump. They know China's paying for you. So what would be the misinformation? Would it be the 34 felons? Oh, it couldn't be that because he actually did being convicted of 34 felons. So Venezuela loves Kamala couldn't be talking about that. Let's see. Could it be that he didn't essay someone? Well, couldn't be about that because he really was held civilly liable for essay, so he couldn't be talking about that. Uh, could it be we saying that he tried to overthrow the government and circumvent the Constitution? No, he couldn't be talking about that because January 6th is a real thing. So he did incite a riot, and he did try to scheme and lie about having lost the 2020 election. Uh, and he has, Jack Smith has indicted him for those actions surrounding January 6, 2021. And let's see, did he steal documents? Did we lie about that? No, he actually did take documents and didn't give them back. That's what those charges that they filed in Florida was about. You know, he has one of his sycophant judges there that, for right now, appear to kick the case, but that ain't going nowhere. So he did do that. So what exactly is the FBI on to me about? I hadn't said any misinformation about Trump. Everything I stated has been true. I did say he filed 6 bankruptcies. Did I lie about that? No, he actually did file bankruptcy 6 times after having been inherited over $400 million from his daddy. That if he were just left in the bank, he could have really just made a fortune. But I'm sorry, Venezuela loves Kamala. I know that's how you would pronounce it, but Venezuela loves Kamala. I don't know what you're talking about. What exactly is the FBI on to you people? Because maybe you want to talk about me people, because I've only stated facts about Trump, so I don't know what you're talking about. Okay, see what else? So all government officials should have to have a balanced budget. I wish Jimmy Day. I wish that was the case. And it's so amazing. We go back to 2000 when we had that surplus, and George W. comes into office, and the first thing he says is, "It's the people's money. We got to give it back to the people." And that's when the Bush tax cuts came into play. And that's what Republicans do all the time. You know, it's like, let's lower taxes, but let's not stop spending. And they have been successful through the years of labeling liberals as tax and spend, tax and spend, tax and spend, and making it seem as if they were responsible. But the thing is, there'll be no tax, but spend, spend and spend, spend and spend. That's how you get those deficits. And then they would say things like deficits don't matter. Well, if you go back to W, where he came in with those tax cuts, then we had 9/11. Then we had the Afghanistan war, the Iraqi war and Afghanistan war. And initially, HW kept those wars off the books, right? Not part of the deficit. So the deficit is even worse under him than we realized, because they were doing the wars off the books. When Barack Obama came into office, he said, go ahead and put everything on the books so we can have a little transparency there. But the point I'm making is, Republicans can't sometimes see rainy day type stuff. If Bush 2, W, would have just left the economy alone, just left the tax rate like it was, with nobody complaining, everybody was fine, we were getting surplus, we could have built up some money, so that when tragedy strikes, we don't have to go into the hole. And it seems that every time, and I know people who are supporting Trump, Republicans, are going to always disagree with this, but it's true. Democrats get it all nice and cleaned up, a little more responsible. Yeah, do they spend? Yeah, but the tax rate is appropriate. And it's so, let me sideways just a little bit here. All these people, there are a lot of people here recently bitching and moaning about FEMA. And a lot of it's misinformation, really put out there by the right, because when Hurricane Helene came through, they knew that it's historical that whoever's in power, as long as they just do their job. I just did a little post about here before I came on. If they just do their job and just call the governors and say, hey, the government, U.S. government's here for you, and whatever you need, I'm here for you if they go tour the area. They're going to get a boost from the people just by looking presidential during these times. Republicans knew that. That's why they put out that misinformation about FEMA, and that's why Trump stood in front of that little makeshift wall in Georgia, lying about Governor Kemp not being able to get in contact with Joe Biden. Anyway, FEMA is a government agency, so a lot of these people who are always bitching about the government, it's amazing how they were sitting there saying that FEMA should do more. It's amazing they don't realize that FEMA, government agencies, that's where your taxes go. Those types of programs. Republicans are notorious for bitching and moaning about taxes in the government until they need the government. I respect you, but the fact that you got paid millions by YT conservatives, then Priest Ghetto, you can't be talking about me. You must be talking about somebody else here, because I ain't being paid millions by nobody. No, it's not. I'm not right now. FEMA. Mother of funny fur babies. You say I'm in North Carolina right now. FEMA shit. So are you in the one of the zones affected, and FEMA's not helping you, or are you just somewhere bitching and got your feet set up somewhere saying it ain't helping somebody else? Put that in the comments. Taxes going to Ukraine. Oh, taxes going to Ukraine. Fighting for democracy for the world is a noble thing. Turning a blind eye to what is going on outside of your country is how Germany was able to invade Poland and some of these other countries back and started World War II. So you may not see the Ukraine as a necessary thing to do, but people who know history knows that it is. Russia invading a little brother, a country who just wants to be free, can't be left unchecked by the rest of the world, saying that it doesn't affect me. Because we saw, as what happened in World War II, when you appease a dictator and look the other way because it doesn't have anything to do with you, so you think, then that war eventually comes at your doorstep. So those millions to Ukraine that you think is unnecessary is very much necessary. Fighting for democracy and the freedoms of other countries to remain sovereign is a noble thing. Republicans don't need the government. Yeah, they don't need the government until they need the government. You know, he said, you're there, shit. All right. My comments are not scrolling up. All right. Let me see. Let's see here. Hold on a second. Get that up. I don't want that. Swipe. And swipe and left to close. Why is it not closing? Oh, here we go. All right. Let me see if anybody out here. Oh, wait a minute. I got the. Atlanta, I see you here. I'm still trying to see how I can get you as the moderator here. I saw it initially here. Oh, here we go. Let me see. I don't. Just let me invite you on. Mother to fur baby. I'm going to give you an opportunity. If you can keep it civil and you want to come on and you made some comments here. If you want to, or did you leave me? I was going. Hey, what's up, sis?
What's up?
Hey, I was trying to. I saw it before we actually came live earlier today. I can do the moderator deal, but now I don't see how to do it. So I'm gonna have to continue to kind of work on that. If you want to just hang out there for right now, uh, that'd be great. Give me a second. I'm trying to see if if someone wants to, who is either a supporter of Kamala, wants to come on and say a word or two, just hit me up with questions. If you are a Trump supporter, I'll give you a chance to say a word or two, not get too crazy. Of course, this is not Trump's channel, so it might not be the place for you to be. But if you got a word or two you want to say, hey, I'll listen. Um, but anyway, I put up a post just before I came on, and it was basically asking a question about evangelicals. Now, a lot of people on the right, evangelicals that is, have claimed that God wants Trump. Okay, hold on a second. Say, hey man, I know you might be busy, but can I ask you a question? You want to ask a question in the chat, or you want to ask a question? You want to come on board and ask a question? You hit me up with a. All right, now I'm gonna try you, my man. Now, if you don't get too wild on me now. You should be coming up. I hit accept here. Did you leave? Okay, well, okay. Antonio Garcia, what's your question? Did you want to ask that question in the chat, or did you want to ask that question? Did you want to come on board with your question? All right, as Antonio and them figure that out. So I had posed a question in a post before I came on, that since a lot of evangelicals that I've know and even seen online and even know in person have claimed that Trump is being selected by God, that God wants him to be president. And they always point to, anytime something happens, if a hurricane happened, an earthquake happened, God is angry, God is angry. So I posed the question, if a hurricane strikes during the campaign season, and hurricanes, presidents who are in power generally get a boost in popularity if they just simply do their job. That's what happened in 2012 with President Obama doing Hurricane Sandy, something that was to the ire of Trump, who was on the sidelines at that time and tweeted out, "Why should Obama get credit?" You know, and which is one of the reasons why so much misinformation about Helene came out now, because they want to kind of stem what they thought would be a boost for Joe Biden and by extension Kamala Harris. But my question is, if that happens traditionally and a hurricane, which you can say sent by God, happened, could it be that maybe God doesn't want Trump to be president? I just posed a question. What say you? Kamala's a joke. Then what's the joke? Is that the punchline? Then what's the joke? I don't remember Kamala on stage anywhere saying they're eating the dogs and eating the pets. I don't recall Kamala stating that if you just drill more oil, which we're drilling more oil than at any time in Trump's years, that's going to bring down the price of energy and then bring down the price of food. Even Kamala the joke knows that that's not a correlation, but your boy Trump seems to think so. I don't recall Kamala stating that if I just drink bleach, I can cure myself of a virus. Ain't nothing funny about it, but that could be considered a dark joke if you got such a dark sense of humor. So I fail to see what the joke is for Kamala Harris. But I can see why the world would be laughing at America if we would be foolish enough to elect Trump again. I can recall Trump standing in front of the NATO or European leaders stating how he was the best thing that happened to American economy, and they laughed at him. And he stood there, well, I didn't expect that reaction. Yeah, I guess you didn't. They laughed at him. So they think he's a joke. So, yeah, Father Curse was when we hurt. I don't know. Mother to Fur Baby, I've been getting you the chance to come up and state some of that, but maybe it's a good thing you didn't, because you spent a whole lot of nonsense up there. He said he was going to pull out NATO if they did not start paying their share. And you just bought that craziness there about their fair share and all that kind of stuff. That's the one thing about MAGA. Whatever nonsense Trump says, you try to justify it and say, oh, it makes sense. We pay their fair share. NATO is a very necessary, needed country, needed organization. But I'm not going to get into that right now, mainly because I don't want to. Trump should not be anywhere near the White House. And I like to talk about, let's go back, and I'm going to spend just a little bit of time again, talking about this economy, because every time you say you're not supporting Trump, even though you state legitimate reasons. And for me, it can start and end with his actions leading up to, on, and after January 6, 2021. That should forever disqualify this man from being president of the United States of America. That scheming, lying about having lost the 2020 election, and then scheming to stay in power, even trying to get his vice president to go against the Constitution and do something that was unconstitutional, and then sending his mob against his sitting vice president, which is why he's not on. This is why we had the Trump Vance ticket and not the Trump Pence ticket, because Trump actually was disappointed in his initial vice presidential pick for following the Constitution. That in and of itself should disqualify this man from running for the office of the highest office in the land. If you can't uphold the Constitution, which I think is part of your oath, if you can't do that, how in the world and why in the world would we elect you president? That's why I look at MAGA and Trump supporters with a side eye. You can't talk about the rule of law. You can't talk about the Constitution to me when someone who has openly defied the Constitution is your nominee for president. But again, people on the right only like one part of the Constitution. That's the Second Amendment. According to them, everything else in that Constitution goes, they can trash it. Just like Second Amendment. Don't care about the First Amendment, 14th, 13th, nothing else. Second Amendment, that's the Constitution. And every 4 years, their candidate for president always talking about, I'm going to protect the Second Amendment, which has never, ever been in any danger. But, as I said, they always go back to, well, what about the economy? So let's talk about the economy. So, again, Trump was president in 2017, 2018, 2019, and 2020. 4 years. And I always ask, they say, was the economy good in 2017? Yes. And then I ask, was that the first year you were in the United States of America? They say no. And I say, oh, so that means you were here in 2016 and 2015 too. Yes. What was different between 15, 16, 17? Then they make up some bullshit. The answer is there wasn't nothing different. There was nothing different between 15, 16, 17, 18. What did Trump policy, what policy did he put in place to make your life so great that changed everything for you between 16, 17? Oh, well, he did deregulation. Okay, what regulation did he deregulate that unleashed an economic boom? Okay. Is that it? No, he did the tax cuts. Okay. When did the tax cuts get signed into law? December of 2017. Okay. So he was in office that whole year, and then tax cuts get signed to law in 2017. And when did they go into effect? Well, mostly in spring of 2018. Okay. So they go into effect then. It doesn't usually take, just like when you take medicine or anything in your body, even a drug, doesn't take a little bit to circulate through. Same thing with the effects of the tax cuts. It's going to be a little bit of time before they actually go into effect. So then they start going into effect maybe 2019. Meanwhile, the economy is doing what the economy was doing, whether Trump said his fat ass in that seat or not. So it is fair to say that the economy that he claimed to have built, that you were living so high up the hog for, was the Biden economy. And Biden would have loved for Trump to have handed him back his economy. But that's not what happened, was it? 2020 happened, didn't it? Yeah, it did. COVID, remember that? Yeah, President Trump wanted me to take some bleach. Said that would heal me. So he comes into power in 2017 on the heels of an economy that's already set up. An economy, by the way, that would have expanded even more had Republicans not put in their austerity measures, clamping as best they could his economy from expanding out, and then kept bitching and whining every year, whereas the economy is rising, but it should be better. Yes, it could be better if you just get your little grimy hands off of it. Every presidential, every person in president, when they usually have an economy, part of that would be governmental jobs that would get floated in. But the Republicans have put all these austerity measures on it, so it clamped it. It kind of squeezed it, so it kept it from expanding out. And then they started bitching that it wasn't big enough. So disingenuous. Anyway, Bush comes, not Bush. Bush had his own ills that Obama had to fix. But then, so Trump hands Biden an economy that comes in on the heels of COVID, where we had supply chain issues. And you heard all this before. You choose not to acknowledge it. You choose to act as if 2020 didn't exist. You choose to act as if Joe Biden was handed back his economy from 2019 when he wasn't. Then you want to blame Joe Biden for having to fix the economy that was affected by COVID globally. And if you look at the other countries of the world that also was affected by inflation, that again was supply chain issues initiated. The U.S. economy is the envy of the world. But over here, we like to bitch and say inflation is too high and it's Joe Biden's fault. Well, what did Joe Biden do to cause inflation? What policy did he put in place? He had one policy that he put in place, and it was called the Inflation Reduction Act. That was the one policy he had in place. It's in the title, is to reduce inflation. That was caused again by COVID and the supply chain issues. And prices, when there's a lot of corporate companies that saw that Americans were willing to pay higher prices, that even after the supply chain issues were corrected, they kept their prices high. That's what Joe Biden was railing about. That's what Kamala Harris stated that we're going to look strongly into. See, they both know that drilling for more oil, and again, they drill for more oil in Biden's 4 years than Trump ever did, is not going to lower inflation. It's not a correlation there. It's not a connection there. They also know that causing tariffs is not going to lower the price of goods. Putting tariffs on goods and services from other countries, they're going to just be transferred over to the people. That's what companies do. They're not going to eat it. They'll pass it on to you. Go make your couch more. Maybe make that gun you like so well, so much more. The price of it. But Trump, who has stated that he likes the poorly educated, some may say the ignorant, I say ignorant in the classic sense, and meaning that you don't know, likes to hear simple things. Terrorist is a simple thing, so that sounds like it might work. Drill, baby, drill is a simple thing, so it sounds like it might work. He knows it's not, well, he might not know there's no correlation there because he's not the brightest bulb. But he speaks in slogans because most of his supporters like slogans. I don't know. He said, put me on home, boy. I don't know. Nice. All right, homeboy, put you on. What you got?
All right, what's up, homeboy?
Talk to me.
So what's your issues? What's your issues with Trump again?
I know you ain't get on the lie to ask me what my issues with Trump are. Give me what your deal is. You hearing my issues with Trump?
You were spewing some anti-Trump, so I just wanted you to elaborate a little bit. So,
You didn't? Well, Steve, you didn't need to get on my live for me to elaborate. I'm elaborating here.
Yeah.
So listen. If you want to hear me elaborate with Trump, just sit there and listen. You don't need to get on. You don't need to get. I don't need to hear you talk to me about it. If you have something to say, that's your opportunity to say it. If you want to hear me elaborate with Trump, just sit there and listen or scroll on. Yeah. If you say so. You had an opportunity, Steve, to speak. Not to ask me to do what I'm doing right now. And that's elaborating. So we'll move on. No, you had your chance. So go, you can either sit there and listen to me elaborate, which is what you were saying. So sit there and listen to me elaborate or scroll on. But you had your opportunity to say your piece. You lost it. So maybe you can scroll to someone else and get on there and spout your piece. But remember, when somebody bring your own, don't ask them to do what they're already doing. I was already elaborating. That's what I'm doing right now. So let me get back to elaborating about Trump. Now, as I stated before, Trump was handed a beautiful economy. And all he had to do was sit his butt in that chair and enjoy the fruits of it. President Obama was even so brilliant and visionary as to put together a playbook that future presidents could utilize and use in the case of a pandemic. He didn't know there was going to be something called COVID, but he had experience with Ebola and some other things that came through that he was like, you know what? A pandemic could really cripple us if we're unprepared. So he had his experts design a response. Trump had access to that, but because Obama's fingerprints were all on it, he decided to toss it. If you could, please, we had 3.6 likes. If you could tap, 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 tap for me, that helps me keep going. That helps me also to bring folk on like a Steve, who I would be more than happy to bring on to say their piece, but not to ask me to do what I'm already doing. I don't get paid for this, so I don't have to be in a situation where I need for you to come in and ask me to elaborate with what I'm doing now. You know, that's not going to happen. And I'm a big boy, so you typing, you scared, ain't doing anything for me. That don't work here. I'm 56 years old, so you can type, you scared in the things all you want. That's not going to intimidate me or scare me or for you to me to bring you back on. That ain't gonna happen. Well, you acting like you were 27, Steve. Yeah, if you say so. I don't need you to school me, man. I'm schooled, man. I got a high school diploma. I got a college degree. I got a master's, man, for whatever it's worth. So I need no more schooling. And certainly you won't school me about Donald J. Trump. I see him every day. I know this cat. You may need to be schooled. So maybe you probably do need to sit there and listen to me elaborate. And if you just sit there and listen, you don't need to come on and say elaborate. Just sit there and be quiet and listen as I'm elaborating about Donald J. Trump, the man who lied about losing the 2020 election. All right. Looks like I lost my YouTube feed, but that's okay. We'll worry about that a little later on. Yeah, the man who lied about losing the 2020 election.